been leaked financial details from the Archewell. There's been speculation whether or not that $50 million came from Oprah Winfrey in return for that big television exclusive that the couple did with her.
Millions of dollars vanished without a trace, and the financial patterns have launched a federal investigation into the Archewell Foundation. Long-rumored concerns are now front and center, sending Meghan Markle's team into damage control mode while federal auditors comb through expense reports that don't quite add up. The stakes are high for Prince Harry, and the silence from Prince William is telling. Where did the money go? And why won't William step in? Join us as we find out why Archewell is under investigation. IRS. Investigators circle the missing millions. The IRS doesn't come knocking over sloppy paperwork. They step in when the numbers stop making sense and money appears to be going somewhere it shouldn't. That's why the Archewell Foundation is now under federal scrutiny. California's Attorney General flagged financial problems so serious they couldn't be brushed off as accounting mistakes, and that referral opened the door to a deeper review. What caught attention first was the sudden collapse in donations. Archewell reportedly brought in around $13 million in 2021, then dropped to about $2 million the very next year. That kind of fall doesn't just hurt a budget. It destroys trust. By 2024, the foundation was spending far more than it raised, running millions in the red. Any nonprofit on that path would be in real trouble fast. But the spending breakdown raised even bigger concerns. Only a small portion of the money reportedly went to actual charitable programs. The majority was labeled as overhead and administrative costs, which is exactly where federal auditors start asking hard questions. When a charity spends far more on itself than on its mission, investigators want to know who really benefited. This is where things get uncomfortable. Auditors are said to be looking closely at whether charitable funds were quietly supporting personal branding, media projects, or lifestyle expenses instead of public good. That kind of misuse, if proven, crosses a legal line. Tax-exempt organizations exist to serve others, not to fund private interests under the guise of charity. Prince Harry's role adds another layer. As a director, he carries legal responsibility whether he was hands-on or not. Even minimal involvement doesn't erase fiduciary duty. If regulators determine the foundation crossed into self-dealing or deceptive fundraising, leadership can be held accountable. There's also a personal risk for Harry that goes beyond finances. Being connected to an organization under federal investigation is especially serious for someone living in the country on a visa. If authorities find wrongdoing, the consequences wouldn't stop at fines or lost status. Immigration issues could quickly enter the picture, turning a financial scandal into a life-altering problem. But if the IRS is already moving this fast, what did Prince William's private intelligence network discover months ago that made him issue one brutal order to his staff? And why does that order guarantee Harry faces this alone? William's smoking gun. Prince William didn't need to wait for federal investigators to start asking questions. From his side, the warning signs were already there in plain sight. His financial advisors at Kensington Palace reportedly went through Archewell's publicly available tax filings the same way they would analyze any complex organization. These are the same people who help oversee the Duchy of Cornwall, a multi-billion-dollar operation known for clean books and predictable results. When they compared the two, the contrast was hard to ignore. What stood out first was the structure. Archewell didn't look like a charity built around long-term programs. On paper, it looked like an organization set up to collect money first and figure out a purpose later. The tax filings showed income coming from a very small pool of donors, not broad public support. One year included a single multi-million-dollar contribution routed through a donor-advised fund, which keeps the source anonymous. The rest came from only a handful of individuals. That kind of concentration makes any nonprofit fragile, because the moment donors get uneasy, the money dries up. Then there were the expenses. Williams' advisors reportedly focused on how much money actually reached charitable causes versus how much stayed inside the organization. The numbers didn't line up in a way experienced auditors expect. Most established charities put the majority of their budget into programs. Archewell's filings showed the opposite pattern, with most spending labeled as administrative or operational costs. The comparison to the Duchy of Cornwall made the issue clearer. The Duchy manages farmland, businesses, housing, and hundreds of employees. Yet it still runs with surpluses and strict oversight. Archewell, by contrast, listed very limited staffing, no major self-run programs, and still operated at a large loss. On paper, that points to either serious mismanagement or a mission that was never clearly defined. That's where Williams' reported decision came in. His advisors understood that once regulators start digging, family ties don't stop the process. Stepping in could blur lines and drag legitimate royal charities into unnecessary scrutiny. So, the instruction was simple and strategic. Stay out of it, protect established institutions, and let the evidence speak for itself. Williams' intelligence network didn't just find mismanagement. They uncovered a payment pattern that transforms this from a financial scandal into a political crime. What did the $250,000 to President Biden's daughter actually purchase? And why does this single transaction threaten to drag congressional investigators into the chaos? The Biden connection. What really pushed this story into a different gear was a donation that didn't look routine at all. According to a report that drew wide attention, Archewell's largest single grant in 2023 was $250,000, and it went to a charity founded by Ashley Biden, the daughter of the then-sitting U.S. president. That alone didn't prove anything illegal, but it immediately raised eyebrows. The organization wasn't a long-established national charity. It was relatively new and closely tied, by family connection, to active political power in Washington. For federal regulators, that kind of connection matters. Charities with tax-exempt status are allowed to do humanitarian work, education, and research, but they are not allowed to participate in politics. The IRS treats that boundary as non-negotiable. Donors get tax deductions only because charities promise to stay out of partisan activity. When money flows toward politically connected figures, investigators have to ask whether the charity is still serving the public or drifting into influence building. When auditors reportedly looked deeper, they didn't see a mix of viewpoints or causes across the political spectrum. They saw a consistent pattern. Additional funds went to consultants and organizations with clear ties to Democratic campaign strategy and progressive advocacy. Over multiple years, hundreds of thousands of dollars were directed to groups aligned with left-leaning media, technology oversight, and refugee support. None went to conservative causes, apolitical disaster relief groups, or traditional faith-based charities outside progressive circles. That imbalance doesn't automatically break the law, but it changes how regulators interpret intent. It suggests alignment rather than neutrality. That's why some watchdog groups began calling for congressional review, arguing the foundation looked less like a charity and more like a networking hub. The concern wasn't just money, but access. In Washington, donations often signal relationships, and relationships invite scrutiny. Prince Harry's status complicates everything further. As a visa holder, he is subject to restrictions that citizens don't face. Political involvement can be a separate issue from financial compliance. Even without fraud charges, regulators can review whether activities fit visa conditions. That's why this donation, more than any spreadsheet error, turned a financial review into a much broader federal problem. The political money trail doesn't just threaten Archewell's tax status, it's created a nightmare where Harry's immigration hangs by a thread. What does U.S. law say happens to foreign nationals whose charities engage in political patronage? And exactly how many days does Harry have before the next visa decision that could end everything? Harry's 90-day immigration nightmare. At this point, the situation around Prince Harry goes far beyond bad headlines or awkward press statements. What's hanging over him now is whether he can legally stay in the United States. Under U.S. immigration law, visa holders are expected to follow strict rules and maintain what's called good moral character. That standard isn't about popularity or intent, it's about compliance, judgment, and responsibility. Being an officer of a nonprofit under federal investigation immediately puts that status at risk. Immigration lawyers point out that this kind of trouble doesn't wait for a courtroom verdict. If an investigation turns serious, agencies can act on the facts in front of them, not on how the case eventually ends. Harry's role as a director at Archewell matters here. Directors are responsible for what an organization does, even if they aren't involved day to day. Claiming limited weekly involvement doesn't shield anyone. In some cases, it raises more questions about oversight and neglect. The Department of Homeland Security doesn't treat financial misconduct lightly, especially when it involves nonprofits and tax-exempt money. When charities are accused of misusing funds, the scrutiny spreads quickly to the people in charge. For visa holders, that scrutiny is sharper. Administrative reviews can move alongside IRS or state investigations, and they don't need a criminal conviction to proceed. There's also the political side, which complicates everything further. Many visa categories strictly limit political activity. If investigators decide that Archewell's donation pattern crossed into political engagement, that alone could be a violation of visa terms. Financial misconduct and political involvement are separate issues under immigration law, and either one can be enough to trigger action. That's why it's telling that Harry is said to have hired his own immigration attorney, separate from the Foundation's legal team. That's usually a sign someone understands the risk is personal now. When advisors start talking about worst-case scenarios, deportation isn't dramatic language. It's a real outcome written into the law. Harry's deportation fears have driven him to make the most shocking move yet, abandoning his wife and retreating to a secret bunker with military-grade security. But why would physically separating from Meghan help his legal case? And what does his hiding spot reveal about who he's preparing to testify against? Harry fled to San Vicente Bungalows. Prince Harry has reportedly gone into hiding at San Vicente Bungalows in West Hollywood, and the choice of location says a lot about his strategy. This isn't a spot people pick for luxury alone. The club is famous for strict privacy rules, including no cameras. Staff even put stickers over guests' phone lenses. For someone needing to create real distance from Archewell during an active investigation, it's basically a legal fortress. No one can document his movements, meetings, or conversations with his separate legal team. Immigration lawyers see the move as very deliberate. By physically separating himself from Meghan and the Montecito house, Harry can argue to U.S. authorities that he wasn't running Archewell day to day when the financial problems occurred. This approach, sometimes called containment, is designed to protect personal legal exposure. If he can show Meghan oversaw most operations while he was minimally involved, he could make a strong case that his visa status shouldn't be impacted even if the Foundation faces penalties. The timing makes the intent obvious. He moved to the bungalows shortly after California's Attorney General labeled Archewell delinquent and barred it from operating. That was a clear signal that his immigration status was at risk. In federal investigations, officers who can prove limited operational involvement sometimes avoid personal criminal liability even when the organization is charged. Separate living arrangements, leases, and independent legal counsel all help create evidence that Harry proactively distanced himself before the investigation deepened. The move hasn't been easy personally. Sources say tensions with Meghan exploded. She reportedly wanted an aggressive public response to protect the foundation, while Harry focused on compliance and legal survival. That difference, PR versus law, has fractured their previously united front. She sees their celebrity as a shield. He knows U.S. authorities don't care about status or image. San Vicente Bungalows also serves a practical legal role. It's where Harry meets with attorneys to prepare for possible testimony. Every step he takes now is designed to separate his personal exposure from the foundation's collapse, even if it comes at the cost of his marriage and public image. While Harry builds legal firewalls in his bunker, Meghan stands alone facing the investigation, and Hollywood's reaction has been more savage than anyone predicted. Which A-list allies have completely vanished, and what does Oprah's calculated silence tell us about how radioactive the Sussex brand has become? Oprah and Clooney went silent. The harshest judgment on Archewell hasn't come from the IRS or California regulators. It's come from Hollywood itself. The silence from former allies has been deafening. Oprah Winfrey, who gave Harry and Meghan their global platform in the 2021 interview that shook the monarchy, hasn't said a word since the scandal broke. No social media posts, no public comments, no invitations to her events. That's striking because Oprah's brand has always been tied to loyalty and the people she champions. Yet when allegations of financial mismanagement hit, she disappeared entirely. Industry insiders see it as a calculated move. Oprah's empire thrives on credibility and trust built over decades. Being linked, even socially, to people potentially facing federal charges for charity fraud could tarnish that reputation. In Hollywood, association is everything, and scandals travel faster than gossip. When a tax-exempt organization is under investigation, even the most powerful connections can vanish overnight. George and Amal Clooney are doing the same thing. Once rumored to be close friends who attended private Montecito gatherings, they've pulled back completely.
Clooney Foundation for Justice has filed suit against Archewell Philanthropies. We'll see them in court in a matter of days.
George has long balanced celebrity status with serious humanitarian work through his own foundation, addressing global crises. Associating with Archewell now could undermine that credibility. By keeping distance, the Clooneys are signaling to the industry that the Sussexes are no longer part of the inner circle of serious, trusted players. An insider described the social fallout as brutal. Friends disappearing like shadows at dawn. Invitations to A-list parties, studio networking events, and elite gatherings have stopped. In Hollywood, relationships are currency, and those relationships are evaporating fast. Without connections, both influence and commercial opportunities shrink. The business impact is already visible. Meghan's lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, which aimed to position her as a Martha Stewart-level figure, reportedly can't find executives willing to run a company tied to someone whose charity is under federal investigation. Investors, collaborators, and industry insiders are all stepping back, leaving the Sussexes increasingly isolated in a world that once celebrated them. The Hollywood blacklist is devastating, but Archewell's sudden restructuring reveals the couple knows exactly how guilty they are. Why did 3 fired employees accidentally expose the real reason they lost their jobs? And how does the rebrand from foundation to philanthropies prove panic over evolution? Why Archewell Philanthropies proves guilt. In December 2024, Harry and Meghan announced that Archewell Foundation was restructuring into Archewell Philanthropies under a fiscal sponsor model. On the surface, the PR pitch said this would streamline administration and give the organization more flexibility for global projects. But legal experts see it differently. The change appears designed to distance the couple from the operational decisions that led to major financial irregularities before IRS findings went public. The fiscal sponsor model works in a specific way. donations are processed by the sponsor while programs are run independently. That creates a layer of plausible deniability. Harry and Meghan can argue they're no longer running day-to-day operations, which could limit personal liability for any past misconduct. It's a move often used when founders face legal or regulatory scrutiny rather than genuine organizational evolution. Timing makes the intent clear. Organizations rarely overhaul their structure in the middle of normal operations. This came right after California's Attorney General declared Archewell delinquent, and around the same time, federal investigators opened a formal probe. Experts note that restructuring during an active investigation is usually advised to shield founders from criminal or civil liability. The Daily Mail revealed what the PR tried to hide. 3 employees were fired and told it was because the charity was closing. Among them was Kristen Sleven, Director of Programs and Operations, making $146,000 a year. Archewell initially denied any staffing changes before finally acknowledging some redundancies, but the contradiction is telling. If the charity were genuinely evolving, it wouldn't eliminate staff crucial to implementing the new structure. The real story: the organization is being effectively shut down, with the closure disguised as rebranding. The restructuring also plays directly into Harry's immigration defense. By claiming he will have minimal involvement in Archewell philanthropies, he can argue to U.S. authorities that his visa status should be judged separately from the foundation's legal and financial troubles. Every move, from fiscal sponsor adoption to staff layoffs, signals an attempt to legally insulate the couple while quietly winding down the operation. It's less about growth and more about survival, both financially and personally. The restructuring might limit legal exposure, but it can't erase years of financial records federal investigators are dissecting right now. What made William calculate that protecting the monarchy's integrity matters more than saving his own brother from potential criminal charges? And which of the 3 possible endings is he betting will destroy Harry's marriage to save his freedom? Why the future king chose silence. Prince William's decision not to step in during Harry's crisis isn't about being cold. It's about protecting the monarchy. From Windsor Castle, he's been watching Archewell's financial collapse and knows that family intervention won't stop federal investigators. Any attempt to help could drag legitimate royal charities into the mess, eroding the public trust that centuries of royal philanthropy depend on. William's experience running the Duchy of Cornwall shaped how he approaches this kind of situation. The duchy manages billions with complete transparency, strict oversight, and a clear line between institutional funds and personal use. History has shown that even minor financial scandals can weaken a monarchy far faster than political attacks ever could. Watching Harry try to replicate royal-style philanthropy in America, but without comparable governance or oversight, William could see the collapse coming. Archewell functioned more like a celebrity vanity project than a structured, accountable charity. The "do not intervene" decision serves multiple purposes. It separates working royals, who follow strict financial rules, from former royals whose operation is under investigation. It protects William and Catherine's charitable patronages from being tainted by association, keeping donor confidence intact. And it sends a clear message to Harry. Royal titles don't shield anyone from consequences when money is mismanaged. William also understands that Harry needs accountability, not rescue. Harry left Britain, citing institutional suffocation and claims of racism, only to build a foundation that fell apart financially in just 4 years. The lesson is unavoidable. Freedom and independence require competence, oversight, and responsibility. If Harry is to truly learn that operating outside established systems doesn't protect him from consequences, he has to face the fallout himself. Intelligence and financial experts at Kensington Palace gave William early warnings. They analyzed Archewell's revenue drop, unsustainable expenses, and politically connected donations months before the story hit headlines. William could have offered advice or resources quietly, but he recognized that the root problem was Harry's rejection of institutional wisdom. Intervening would have masked mistakes rather than taught necessary lessons. And in William's calculation, the integrity of the monarchy and the lesson Harry must learn were worth keeping that distance. William's cold calculation leaves Harry staring at three scenarios: criminal charges, deportation, or betraying Meghan to save himself. Which ending are palace insiders betting becomes reality? And what signals in the next 30 days will reveal which path Harry's already chosen? Criminal charges, deportation, or betrayal? Harry is now staring down the three possible outcomes of the federal investigation into Archewell, and none of them are easy. Scenario 1 is the worst case. Criminal charges. If prosecutors prove that Archewell's money was used for personal branding or other self-dealing, Harry could face prison and automatic visa revocation, which would trigger deportation. That means his kids could grow up in America while he's forced to leave, a devastating blow to the family unity that motivated their move from Britain. Scenario 2 is slightly less extreme, but still devastating. The IRS could hit Archewell with civil penalties, revoke its tax-exempt status, and make public the findings of financial mismanagement, all without prosecuting anyone. Harry wouldn't face jail time, but his reputation as a humanitarian leader would take a massive hit. Visa officials would scrutinize him more closely, and any new business or charitable ventures would be tainted by association. Once federal investigations label an organization as mismanaged, few legitimate charities or partners will want to touch you. Scenario 3 is what insiders say Harry is quietly preparing for: cooperating with prosecutors in exchange for immunity. If Meghan ran day-to-day operations and made the decisions that led to alleged fraud, Harry could testify against her to protect himself and his visa. This would involve detailing her management, how donor funds were allocated, and communications that suggest misuse. It would destroy the marriage publicly, but it could preserve his ability to stay in the US with his children. Palace sources indicate that William is reportedly betting on Scenario 3. He seems to believe that Harry's desperation to avoid deportation will outweigh loyalty to Meghan, especially since the couple already appears fractured over how to handle the investigation. Harry's move to San Vicente Bungalows, his independent legal counsel, and physical separation from Meghan all point to preparations for this outcome. The clock is moving fast. IRS investigations usually take 18 to 24 months, but California's aggressive actions and congressional interest could speed things up. Harry's visa review dates loom, and immigration officials will judge his eligibility based on the status of the ongoing investigation. Every move now, legal, residential, and personal, is about survival in a situation that could determine where he and his family live for years to come. What happens in the next 30 days? 3 triggers that will seal Harry's fate. The next 30 days could make everything clear about which path Harry is on. There are a few specific signals to watch that will reveal whether he's bracing for civil penalties, criminal exposure, or cooperation agreements. First, how Archewell responds to California's document requests will be telling. If the foundation resists producing financial records or drags its feet, it's a strong sign they're hiding damaging evidence. Full, immediate cooperation would suggest they're trying to resolve the delinquency quietly and show the problems were administrative rather than intentional. Second, congressional activity will indicate whether the investigation is escalating. Republican committees have shown interest in political patronage by tax-exempt celebrity charities. And if subpoenas are issued for Harry, Meghan, or Archewell staff to testify under oath, what started as a regulatory review becomes a political spectacle. That kind of escalation could trigger criminal referrals, increasing pressure on everyone involved. Staff departures are another major signal. Beyond the 3 employees already let go, any mass resignations could suggest employees witnessed activity they don't want to defend under oath. If James Holt, Harry's long-term advisor, steps back from even a senior advisory role, it's a clear move to distance himself from potential liability. Each exit tells a story about what insiders know and how worried they are. Finally, the clearest signal will be any announcement of cooperation agreements. If Harry's lawyers publicly say he's providing full cooperation with authorities, it strongly indicates he's preparing to testify against Meghan to protect himself from criminal charges and deportation. In short, over the next month, document compliance, congressional subpoenas, staff moves, Harry's travel, and cooperation statements will be the exact markers showing which path his future is taking. Each signal is a piece of the puzzle in a high-stakes legal and personal battle. What do you think? Is Prince William right to let Harry face federal investigation alone, or should he intervene to protect his brother from potential deportation? How many more wrong decisions will Prince Harry go through? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Remember to like, share, and subscribe for more. Also, click the next video showing on your screen. You will enjoy it.